Oh, well, good morning to you all. It must be nice to be cozy on the couch the day after Christmas, but we appreciate it because you found us. This is the Sweat DraftKings daily sports betting and fantasy show. My name is Brendan Glasheen. I will have guests joining me throughout the next hour, so thanks for stopping by. We had 5 NBA Christmas Day games yesterday. How about Lakers Clippers? That was good, huh? 6-game slate on December 26th, 2019. We say good morning to Los Angeles native and DraftKings own Chirag Hira. I will not tell you who he roots for. And RotoWire's Alex Barutha. Let's play cover to cover in the association. All 6 home teams are favorites tonight, and the question is, will they cover their DraftKings Sportsbook spread? We'll begin with the Wizards at the Pistons. Detroit is losing 6. I'm seeing here Blake Griffin is probable to play, and then Luke Kennard is questionable. Pardon me, he's out tonight. So, Chirag, with those things in mind, what do you think?
I definitely feel that Washington is the play here. You know, Detroit has failed to cover spread in their last 5. They're 3-7 against the spread in their last 10. So I really feel that Washington is the chance to cover here. Even though they're really banged up in the front court, Bradley Beal is playing an elite level, and Ish Smith has really stepped up as a point guard as well.
How about you, Barutha?
I mean, the Pistons are really difficult to have confidence in. I mean, both of these teams are 3-7 over the past 10 games, but I think the Wizards, I'm too worried about the Wizards' injuries. I mean, they're out Wagner, Hachimura, Thomas, Bertans, Bryant, like 5 of their best players, arguably. I think this line being, 6 is just kind of out of respect to Bradley Beal being as good as he is. I mean, he could pull this game out by himself, but I think right now, even though the Pistons are hard to trust, I think the talent level that they have that's healthy is just too much, and I think it's going to be too overwhelming for the Wizards.
Yeah, again, all 6 home teams tonight are favorites, so we go to the Battle of New York, kinda. Knicks at the Nets. Brooklyn is losing 7 points. Karis LeVert has already been ruled out of this game with a thumb injury. Chirag, will go back to you. Brooklyn losing 7. Can the Nets cover?
I don't believe the Nets can cover. Mitchell Robinson started for the Knicks in their last game, finally getting some continuity. Elfrid Payton started the last 2 as well. Julius Randle has been really playing well. I think the Knicks are going to be able to cover in the spread. They don't have to travel that far after Christmas, so this gives an opportunity for the Knicks.
All right, Brooklyn is losing 7. Do they cover, Barutha?
I think they do, but I think it will be close. I mean, with Mitchell Robinson coming back and Payton there, they do have they're playing their better players at this point, and they have more players available. This is really just all about stopping Spencer Dinwiddie, I think, because he's just been on fire this month, basically averaging 27 points, 7 assists. I'm not exactly sure the Knicks have the personnel to stop Spencer Dinwiddie, and so that makes me lean Brooklyn. But yeah, I mean, if they can figure out any way to slow him down, I don't have enough confidence in the other Nets players to do enough playmaking to really generate offense.
A couple of Texas teams are going to duel head-to-head. Spurs are at the Mavericks, and we'll talk about this throughout the course of the show. Luka Doncic is questionable, still nursing a sprained right ankle that's kept him out the last 4 games, but Luka did practice in full on Christmas Eve a few days ago. So with that in mind, Kristaps has been going off lately. Dallas is still a 6.5-point favorite against San Antonio. Chirag, do you like Dallas to cover?
I don't like Dallas to cover because the fact is you might get some value here with Luka being questionable. If he gets in, that spread could move up a 0.5 point. If he's out, it can move the other way, a 0.5 point for the Spurs. So I feel that there's some value here if you wait for the line to move and we get some official ruling on Luka Doncic.
Barutha, say Doncic is a go, considering he practiced in full a couple of days ago. Do you like Dallas to cover?
Yeah, I do. And I would assume he's going to play. I mean, considering that he did a full practice on Tuesday, it seems like he would be good to go. So I think there is value in 6.5. But I think it's important to note that, everyone's kind of still down on the Spurs, but they're 6-4 over their past 10. I know that's not amazing, but they haven't been quite as bad as they were to start the season. And when that's the case, when the Spurs are playing like the Spurs again, a 6.5-point spread is actually a lot. Now, yeah, basically I like this line because I think Doncic is going to play, but it could move up. And so kind of wherever you stand on Doncic's availability, and how well the Spurs are playing, I think that's where you attack the line.
It is weird to say out loud that the Spurs are playing better. They really have not been a great basketball team in the early part of the season overall. Let's go to the next game. Grizzlies are going to visit the Thunder tonight. OKC at home. Again, all the home teams are favorites. OKC, Chirag, 6.5-point favorite. Do they cover?
Finally, I'm going to roll with the home team. I do believe OKC is going to cover. Ja Morant has been playing really well. Jonas Valanciunas stepping up for the Grizzlies. But, Chris Paul has really steadied this team. They're a playoff team now. And I really believe a team that is with a strong veteran presence that they're going to be able to cover. With Danilo Gallinari also not on the injury report, go with OKC here.
Do you like the Thunder as well, Barutha, covering at home?
I kind of lean towards Memphis. When they're fully healthy, and when they're fully healthy, they have a solid amount of talent. I mean, Valanciunas can have big games. He'll be a force against Steven Adams this game. Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark, hyper athletic forwards. I think Memphis has the tools. Guys like Jay Crowder, Dylan Brooks are playing well. I think they have the tools to pull upsets. And 6.5 points isn't exactly what I'd want. It's not, it's not a huge number for Memphis, but at the same time, I think they're really talented, really good young team. The veteran leadership of the Thunder is, that's important too. But I don't know. I feel like 6.5 points is a lot for a Memphis team that is good when they're fully healthy.
Still 2 more games to get to. The next one, Timberwolves are at the Kings. This one has Sacramento as a home favorite, losing 4.5. And a big reason for that might be Karl-Anthony Towns being out or possibly out. He's questionable with a knee sprain. He's missed the last 4 games. And for Sacramento, he's a weapon. Boban Bogdanovic, he's questionable dealing with an ankle injury. He's missed the last 3. So we keep those things in mind. Chirag, does Sacramento cover the 4.5-point spread?
I really don't like Karl-Anthony Towns to play. Buddy Yields has been playing really well. De'Aaron Fox has stepped up, looking really healthy after that ankle injury that's kept him out almost a month. And I really feel that this spot right here for Sacramento, they will be able to cover 4.5. That's not too much, and it's just a couple baskets here and there. A free throw or 2 could really make this too.
All right, Barutha, so injuries do impact this one. So how do you feel about Sacramento losing 4.5 and covering?
I really like Sacramento favored by 4.5. I think they could be favored by 4.5 if Towns played in this game. I think the Kings really are the better team. I think they have more talent. I mean, given what we thought at the beginning of the year and the talent on paper, that's not it's not a hot take or anything to say Sacramento's a better team. They were expected to compete for the 8th seed. So, I mean, the Kings haven't exactly looked like themselves, losing 4 in a row, but I think they really just are more talented than the Wolves even if Karl-Anthony Towns plays. So I would really like grabbing the 4.5 here.
All right, last one. Chirag, Trailblazers are at the Jazz. Utah, 5.5-point favorite in Salt Lake City. Do the Jazz cover?
The Jazz are not going to cover. This is a TNT game, and I feel Damian Lillard is going to be Dame time for him. This is going to come down to the last possession as well, and I feel that Portland will be able to cover the spread here. 5.5 is a lot, and I don't think that it's going to be somewhere where Utah has all the firepower. Mike Conley, while he has not played well this season and him being out, has inserted Jingling Joe Ingles into the starting lineup. I just feel that the Blazers have been playing well enough with Hassan Whiteside in the middle, being able to, while he might not neutralize Rudy Gobert or stop him, I do believe the size and the depth on the Blazers will be able to help it out here, and they'll be able to cover.
So Chirag believes it's Dame time in Utah tonight, and that will affect how the spread is covered. Barutha, what do you think? Utah, 5.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, I am kind of leaning towards Portland here. I've been going back and forth. I mean, this will definitely be a highly charged game. I mean, both of these teams have been underwhelming a little bit, although the Jazz have been playing really well lately, but they kind of have something to prove against each other here. So I think this will be a close game. Utah's home court advantage is significant. They're 11-3 at home, but yeah, I think, with Portland's personnel, I don't really trust, I don't think the Jazz have the backcourt to contain Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And I think the Whiteside versus Gobert thing is important. And so I think those factors plus the wing play, if Bojan Bogdanovic gets really hot for the Jazz, that could end things. But at the same time, yeah, I think Portland has almost more to play for here. And Damian Lillard went 0 for 10 from 3 in his past game. I think he'll be positively regressing here. And this would be a big game for them. It would be a big win.
All right, those are the betting angles on the DraftKings Sportsbook for the NBA six-game slate. Shirag and Ben, they'll be back to examine the DFS angles to this NBA slate. We're going to dive into NFL Week 17 Sportsbook discussion with Jeff Ulrich, but first we have to find out who Adam Levitin missed on in Week 16.
Week 16 is over, so it's that time to figure out who Adam Levitin missed on this weekend. I'm Taralyn Azak, and this is Who Did I Miss On?, where we recap Levitin's not-so-great plays from the NFL Sunday main slate. First up, with the Cowboys in line to clinch the division with a win in Philly, you liked Amari Cooper going against the Eagles secondary. But despite 12 targets, only 6.4 fantasy points. What went wrong?
Yeah, Amari's been so bad outside, away from Jerry Dome, on the road. I thought that could be overcome by such a big game for the Cowboys and such poor secondary play from the Eagles out of Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby. I just didn't think that they could hang with Amari at all. In hindsight, Amari was getting pulled off the field for Tavon Austin, and it seems like he might still be hurt, even though he wasn't on the injury report. So frustrating result for Amari Cooper for sure.
Another wide receiver you liked was LA's Keenan Allen against the Raiders. 10 targets, 11.6 fantasy points. But did you expect a lot more for a salary of $6,300?
Yeah, frustrating day, I think, for the Chargers as a whole. You know, I think it's the nail in the coffin for Phillip Rivers when in perhaps his final home game in LA, he can't start shredding this just atrocious Raiders secondary. And so for Keenan Allen to only have 11 DraftKings points on that kind of day, I think it's really frustrating. It just speaks to the fact that Phillip Rivers is not capable at this point of providing a ceiling, especially when he has so many mouths to feed in Melvin Gordon and Eckler and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry.
Russell Wilson is someone who you liked this week, going up against the Cardinals at home. But in one of the week's surprises, Arizona actually pulled off the upset. Just 10.96 fantasy points for Russ. What was the issue here?
Yeah, and I think being on Russ was about being on matchup, you know, being on Russ at home in one of the best possible spots against this Arizona team, which plays fast and allows so many yards per play. But yeah, I mean, Russ's last 5, 6, 7 weeks, he just has not shown any kind of explosive abilities. So yeah, you know, sometimes when you are on a play because strictly matchup, things can go really bad because on the field, it's so much more about opportunity and the way teams are meshing. So yeah, a little bit frustrating there for Russ Wilson for sure.
That's who Adam Levitin missed on in Week 16. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitin. We'll catch you next Monday to see who you missed on in Week 17.
And maybe it's just easy. I could say this every year. This is the best place to me this game has ever been on so many levels. Like Tiger at a super elite status with the guys who we've like love already, and like our crop of guys like Rom who are about to really take this game over.
And then you have the Wolf, Morikawa,
every year,
Hovland,
every year. It's like
Neiman, Im.
Yeah, you're a fan of other sports. Well, guess what they do every year? They have drafts, and we get to go gaga over those top 10 picks. Well, these guys come every year. And guys are getting kicked off that we've forgotten about a long time ago.
Yeah, instead of Bill Haas, there's now Scotty Scheffler.
It's exciting. It is so much fun. It's in such a great place. And you could say what you want. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But there's nothing like we have real life bad guys in golf.
That's great.
It's amazing.
I mean, most guys in golf are probably bad guys. They're probably assholes who you probably didn't like in real life.
Yeah, and half of you, if you saw how they went into the voting booth, you'd probably hate them anyway.
Half of them? Are you kidding me? I'd say that there's
I mean half the public.
Oh, half the public, yeah.
Like if you knew who they voted for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If people...
If
what, Trump at the Ryder Cup?
We did a show where I forgot... Nah, never mind.
What, you're going to talk about Trump at the President's Cup?
Yeah, I was going to make a Trump President's Cup comment, but that's... you watched that 2 weeks ago.
Yes. I'm sure he had
he had lots to tweet.
I'm sure he had great things to say about everyone unless they lost. Then they're losers. But he does love golf. Yeah. And golfers love Mr. Trump because he saves them taxes. Bets. Let's round this out. What do we kind of come to a consensus with? For me, Masters, I have none. No Masters wagers for me as of right now.
But you like that Justin Thomas.
Justin Thomas at 20 is something I'm interested in, but we'll see. The other ones I feel better about. PGA Championship, Victor Hovland, who's not in yet, I have at 125 to 1 with a top 5 each way. I also just bet Stenson at 66 to 1. So those are two that I'm in on. At the U.S. Open from Winged Foot, I have just bet Fleetwood 33 and Willett 150. I had Casey. I didn't bet him yet, but I'm going to cross him off.
You don't need to write. Yeah,
I don't need to go crazy about Paul
that
Casey.
one can percolate because he's got to win in North America for probably that to change.
He did win the KLM Open, and he wins the Valspar every year now.
And listen, Pebbles early. He lost to Phil there last year, so I'm not saying he won't.
That's on the list, but the two that I actually have bet, Fleetwood 33, Willett 150. British Open from Royal St. George's, Tiger Woods 25 to 1. Sung Jae Im, 100 to 1. And those are my future wagers for the majors this year. We'll have more by the time the actual majors come around.
As I said to you before we recorded, I am very fortunate that yesterday, I'm not dating it, but yesterday in the NFL was very kind to me, where it's a perfect result to do the day before I'm about to just pound golf futures. Because you have a bad day. It would have gone a lot worse. So quickly for me, the bets I've been in on, I've put my Masters one out there. Rom, I did something exotic. Wouldn't really advise it. 38 to 1. I do like that Justin Thomas thing, though. I could run to bank. And if I had a 5-star NFL game coming up, it could do what I did. As dumb as it is. Cantley 40, part of the consortium that was touting that last, I want to say, summer. And Willett 125, I'm just beholden to it. The odds were double what my book had when I was in Vegas, so I made it. I've got the Hovland PGA and the Tiger British Open.
We are heading into the final weekend. This is the final week of the 2019 NFL regular season. There's no Thursday night game, so the anticipation just continues to build towards Sunday. DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich. It's just you and me, buddy, to talk Week 17 betting angles. I know you're thrilled. You're so happy to be with me. When you volunteered to take this task, did you know you'd be stuck with just me?
No, I would have 100% done it if I knew it was just you and me, Brendan. Come on, we need some bonding time here, buddy. Let's go.
It's fair. Yeah. We'll see how we do over the next, 43 minutes. So we'll work on that. Let's do NFL Chase or Fade, Jeff, to discuss this slate. Chase or Fade, the following bets for Week 17. We're going to start with the Oakland Raiders. They need a lot to happen to make it into the playoffs. We won't give you the headache, but needless to say, they have something to play for. Raiders are 3.5-point underdogs in Denver. The Raiders cover. Chase or Fade?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Oakland getting in the playoffs here because I don't even think they're going to win this game. I don't even think this game is going to be that close, to be honest. I know Oakland covered against a division opponent last week, and they won outright, and it kind of surprised a lot of people, including me, going and shocking the Chargers a bit. But Denver is a better team. They've been really consistent over the last 2 months of the year. I mean, ever since about week 4, they've been really good at keeping games within a score or winning outright, outside of a couple, losses to elite teams. I'm talking like the Kansas City Chiefs and a bad road loss of Buffalo. Not mid-tier teams, like really elite teams. Denver has been competitive in every single game since about week 4 on, including last week where they came from behind, got a 10-point home win against the Lions, who I know aren't good, but I mean, look, the Oakland Raiders are pretty much in the same deal, the same ballpark as the Detroit Lions right now. Even with that win last week, no Josh Jacobs, no pass rush really to bring pressure on Drew Lock. And then you have the Denver Broncos, who are 5-2 this year as against the spread at Mile High Stadium in Denver. Like, this is a team that's just been really good against the spread most of the year. They're one of the top teams just looking at that against the spread metrics. So Oakland definitely not. I like Denver in all aspects here. Their defense has been better at home. They've been good at limiting the pass at home, better at limiting the pass at home. I think 3.5 points is still too small. If you can get 3, I really like that. But minus 3.5, give me the Broncos.
All right, let's move on to the New England Patriots. They have clinched the AFC East, but the Pats still need to lock up the first-round bye. They can do so with the win over the Dolphins. They are 16-point home favorites against a Miami team that's played some inspired football here down the stretch with a tanking roster. Chase or fade, Jeff, the Pats cover that big spread.
Yeah, like I get why people might want to take a shot in the dark on the Dolphins here. And look, Miami is kind of setting up as a public bet. I mean, it looks like about 70% of the money so far is coming in on Miami, which is kind of shocking to say in a game against New England. And I know the point spread is big and New England's been a little iffy offensively, but I think they played pretty well last week against Buffalo. I really like the way they moved the ball for the most part. Look, Miami is who they are. They have the worst pass rush in the league. They have the worst adjusted sack rate in the league defensively. They don't bring any pressure on the quarterback. Look what happened in the second half of that game against Cincinnati. I've never seen a team blow that kind of lead since basically the Patriots and Atlanta in the Super Bowl. I mean, that was historic kind of stuff that was happening there. The Cincinnati Bengals almost came back from like 3+ touchdowns. That's just the kind of the defense that New England is going up against. So I think people are a little bit nuts to be betting Miami here as a road favorite or as a road underdog. Again, Miami kind of had their Super Bowl last week against another bad team in Cincinnati. Going on the road here against New England in the cold weather, I don't like this spot at all. New England has everything to play for here. Tom Brady wants that first-round bye. You know that. There's been a little bit of speak, too, about this being like a big game divisionally and Bill Belichick trying to blow up the Dolphins' pride a little bit, saying they're improved. I think New England wins this game big. I much prefer the New England side.
Sure, and you think the Dolphins would want to keep their draft position towards the top, right? So
exactly.
Let's move on to the Saints. They are heavy favorites over the Panthers, who have nothing to play for. Chase or fade, New Orleans covers 13 points on the road in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, this is another similar setup, another division game between an elite team and a team that's just playing out the string. And, at least for Miami bettors, you can make the case, wow, this team's playing inspired, they're playing better. Carolina's the exact opposite. I mean, since the last 4 weeks, this team has been an absolute dumpster fire. And you kind of get it, right? Now they're moving into like a quarterback evaluation phase. They don't even have a permanent head coach. So the guys there, like you could say they're playing for their jobs next year, but they're really not because they don't even know who the coach is going to be. So there's all of these things going on that kind of point to low motivation here for Carolina. And I know they're at home, but they were at home a couple weeks ago against the Washington team with a really poor secondary, and they lost by over a touchdown. The New Orleans Saints have been a really, really good road team over the last 3 years. They're 9-3 against the spread as away favorites. It kind of shocks some people when you hear that stat because everyone thinks, oh, you get New Orleans out of the dome. They're really easy to take advantage of. It's actually been the complete opposite. This is a really, really good road team in New Orleans, a team that travels well. Carolina doesn't really have a great divisional record against the spread either over the last 3 years, even with Cam Newton. Now they got Will Grier going up against the New Orleans Saints. I like New Orleans in the spot to cover. I know the number's kind of big, but again, New Orleans is another team who's playing for something. If they win and they get like one loss from a Green Bay or San Francisco, they're going to get like a first-round bye too. So potentially, if everything breaks their way, they could still get the first seed. So New Orleans is going to play to win here. Carolina has absolutely nothing to play for. They're starting Will Grier. I think under 2 touchdowns, I'd take New Orleans.
So here's another division game. Most of these games are division games. It's another big spread between the Packers and the Lions. You just mentioned it, Jeff. A win for Green Bay. There's a chance at that first-round bye. They'd also need to get that 1 seed. So they can get the bye with the win. They could also get the 1 seed with the win and a Seahawks loss on Sunday night to San Francisco. Packers are 12-point favorites on the road playing in a dome in Detroit. Green Bay covers. Chase or fade?
This is the one I'm a little bit wary of. It just feels like a little bit of a trap. Again, we're talking about elite teams, I think, with New Orleans and New England, or at least elite defenses there, especially in New England. Green Bay, to me, is a little bit of a fraud. I know they had that big win last week, but to me, that was really about Minnesota Vikings just playing like to their absolute floor. I mean, they had a pathetic game offensively. So I really feel like Green Bay got helped out a lot last week. They didn't really even look that great against Chicago. This is just a team who has struggled in spots to kind of blow out teams as well. So On the road against Detroit here, I know it's Detroit. I know Detroit has been a dumpster fire too, and there's really no difference between, Oakland, the Carolina, Detroit. I'm not trying to say Detroit is necessarily better than those teams, but I feel like their opponent here is a bit more questionable. Green Bay going on the road at places like the Chargers and getting blown out, not playing well at San Francisco. It's a divisional opponent. You can see a little bit of pride here. I just don't trust Green Bay enough is what it comes down to. David Blau's looked okay in spots. And the one thing that Green Bay has allowed teams to do against them is run. They're still like a bottom 10 rush defense in the league. So the Lions get Bo Scarborough going a bit, and whoever they're going to throw out there, running back Kerryon Johnson, maybe get a few more snaps. I think that could actually keep this game a little bit closer than people think. So I'm not really on Green Bay here. I don't necessarily love taking Detroit either. This isn't exactly my favorite spot of the week, but I would take Detroit here just because I don't trust the Packers.
All right, Jeff, that's all the time we have here. We're not going to give the NFC East the time it deserves because it really doesn't deserve that time. The NBA guys are going to return in a sec. You got Jeff's thoughts on some of the Sunday football coming up. What's Mike Francesa thinking?
Let's get ready for this. We're going to fire through the rest of the Week 17 NFL slate, starting with the Bills as a 1.5-point favorites at home over the Jets. The Bills are locked in at the 5 seed, so could the Jets end the year on a high note here?
Yeah, you see, you never know. The teams that are locked in, you don't know what their philosophy is going to be. You know they're going to rest guys that are injured at all because they need them a week later in the playoffs. The teams that are locked in, you can't trust. You have to stay away from them in that spot because you just don't know. Some of them will have a philosophy where they want to go into the playoffs with momentum. They want to play hard. They'll play their starters. Some other ones will pull their starters right away and won't even dress their starters. So you have to be very careful from a standpoint of playing the last week. You have to always be very careful and understand there are teams that are going to pull all their players, especially when they're locked into playoff spots. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. You really do. Either play the underdog or stay away from the game.
All right, New Orleans, huge favorites at Carolina, 12.5 points. Saints still with an outside shot at the number 1 seed, so can they cover?
Yeah, I think they have to play hard. I think they have to take the game seriously. There's not they do have a chance to move up. So from that standpoint, the worst thing they'd like to see, and here's what's happened with Carolina. Carolina, they got rid of Rivera. They put in Perry Fuel. The players know there's a complete regime change coming. A lot of the players are going to be gone. All the coaches are going to be gone. That team stopped playing. So I can't see them giving the Saints any kind of fight if the Saints want to play. And I think the Saints have to play because there's something they can gain something here. And any place you can gain up the ladder in the slotting, if you can go from not getting a bye to getting a bye, if you can go from the 2 to the 1, and all that is possible in the NFC, if that's the case, then you have to play. So if you're one of those teams that can have any kind of advancement at all, you got to try. And I think they will do that.
New England are 15.5-point favorites against the Dolphins, who have played too well to earn the number 1 pick. The Pats need a win to clinch a bye, so can they cover this number?
Bill Belichick historically has played these games hard. He usually does. Now, be careful here with the enormous number because the Fish and Fitzpatrick have played very well. I mean, they really have. They've played very hard. They're in there trying. So I wouldn't go near that number there. But obviously the Pats will do what they have to do to win the game. As far as that astronomical number, they haven't been a very good offensive team this year. I'd be careful with that.
Chargers at Chiefs, with Kansas City coming in as 7.5-point favorites. Patrick Mahomes and company can still move up to 2 or down to 4. So do they take care of business at home?
Well, you know what? It's funny. Again, they're playing well. I think they really want the defense, which has played so well in recent weeks, to go into the playoffs. They're not going to get the 2. They know that. It's going to go Baltimore, New England. So they're going to play the first weekend. But I think they want to go in there with momentum. So I think they play the game for real, especially defensively. Play the game for real, and that should be enough here. Their defense, if you look, Kansas City has done a great job in recent weeks, and Spags' defenses are historically better as the season goes on. They're very technical, and as the players catch on to it, it really makes a difference. And if you look now, Kansas City has put up really good numbers week after week now defensively. I think that will continue here. I think they will play hard here. I'm sure the Chargers will go in and try, but Kansas City's allowed 3, 16, 9, and 17 in the last 5 weeks. Any one of those gets them another win and gets them a comfortable win.
In a game with certainly nothing on the line, the Falcons go to Tampa as 1-point underdogs. Who do you like here?
You know, it's funny. These two teams both had weird years. They're both probably better than their record indicates because Tampa has made so many mistakes. Winston has had so many turnovers. Atlanta, amazingly, is going to have a losing season, but they beat both the Saints and the 49ers this year. We know what kind of talent they have. So this game will probably be a very close game. It all depends on how many interceptions Winston throws. When he doesn't throw interceptions, they can beat anybody. When he throws interceptions, and he throws a ton of them, they have a lot of problems. I go with Atlanta in a close game.
Thank you, Mr. Francesa. Time for a DFS breakdown of tonight's 6-game NBA slate. DK Live editor Shrag Hira and RotoWire's Alex Barutha have returned. NBA pick and roll, fellas. Choose between two players on tonight's 6-game slate. I'm going to give you the two players. We mentioned this in the Sportsbook segment. Luka Doncic is questionable tonight against the Spurs, but he got a full practice in on Christmas Eve. He looks like he could return from his ankle injury. If Luka is in, Barutha, do you like him most as the most expensive player, or would you roll to someone who is more of a sure thing?
I think I would roll. I mean, I think this is a fine matchup for Doncic. I think you can play him in cash games, and that's fine. But if I'm playing GPPs, if I'm shooting for more upside, I'd prefer to pay down for someone like De'Aaron Fox, for example, who really caught my eye at $7,000. He's going up against the struggling Wolves. We know De'Aaron Fox can easily get 40 fantasy points. He can even go for 50. He has one of his better games of the season, and that's kind of where Doncic hovers in general. But if you're shooting for upside, you can pay down a ton and get someone like Fox.
Yeah, Sharag, you look at this slate here, and after Luka, you got Karl Anthony Towns, who's questionable. Then it's Drummond, and then Bradley Beal. So are you looking to go elsewhere from Luka?
Definitely. You know, with his salary almost at $12,000, you have to see him score about 60 fantasy points. And while that's in the range of his outcomes, it doesn't feel like, as Alex mentioned, that's an upside spot. De'Aaron Fox is a really good option, but really, I just like this slate to be a more balanced approach. And spending up for Luka, spending up for Karl Anthony Towns, while it could provide some, they're questionable, so they're not going to have as much ownership on this slate. But I just feel like there's other better spots to look at.
Now, Luka has that versatility. He's a guard. He's also a forward. So now we're going to look at just the point guard position. And you talk about a player like Spencer Dinwiddie. He has been outstanding with Kyrie Irving out of the lineup. 57 DK points last time out for Dinwiddie against the Hawks. Plus, we discussed this earlier, Karis LeVert has been ruled out for this one. So, Sharag, we'll start with you. Are you taking Dinwiddie tonight at 8,700, or your guy, Damian Lillard, he's $200 cheaper against Utah?
I mean, honestly, in this situation, you have where, Dinwiddie has the upside playing against the Knicks, while Damian Lillard might have the upside because he's the main guy, but going against Utah's tougher defense on the road while Brooklyn is at home, I just feel like both players are able to get in their same range, but Dinwiddie has slightly more upside, and the only reason why you'd want to go with Damian Lillard in the full game slate is if you need that $200 and you know that, hey, you know what, maybe I can get a point guard that will allow me to score about 40, 45 fantasy points, while Dinwiddie has the upside to show 50 or 60 points even here.
Barutha, are you going to pick Dinwiddie or roll off to somebody else?
I'm going to pick Dinwiddie here. I mean, it is really hard to resist Lillard, considering how talented he is. But yeah, the matchup for Dinwiddie is better here. I think they need him more than the Blazers need Lillard. I mean, the Blazers have guys like CJ McCollum and Hassan Whiteside who, you don't want to have to rely on them. But if Lillard's having a bad game, they can kind of have a pick and roll thing going. They can kind of get in a rhythm. I don't trust anybody else on the net. So I think if the teams do have to lean, on their better players, the Nets will have to lean harder on Dinwiddie than the Blazers will have to on Lillard. And I just don't trust anybody on New York to stop Dinwiddie, while there are some players on the Jazz who obviously are solid defensively.
Bradley Beal is the highest priced shooting guard on this slate, 9,300 against the Pistons. Chirag, are you riding Beal tonight or maybe paying down for someone like Andrew Wiggins, who could be in a good spot, as we just mentioned, Karl Anthony Towns possibly sitting out again?
I feel like it really depends on roster construction. A balanced approach will allow you to play Bradley Beal in this slate just because he's not over 10K and there are some value options under 4K that are standing out already. And I feel like, you know what, Andrew Wiggins, while he has played well with Karl Anthony Towns out of the lineup, you know, he needs to have those assists, and that's what really provides him the upside. If he's not passing the ball well and the other people on his team are not scoring from his passes, his upside is limited. While Beal, you know he's the main scoring option. The Wizards are down a bunch of guys. Detroit is not an elite defensive team, so I believe Beal is the option right here.
Bruce, are you with Chirag here in on Bradley Beal or somebody else?
Yeah, I'm with Chirag exactly. I think Beal is a good player to have as, like he mentioned, possibly your most expensive player in your lineup at 9,300, who has upside for 60 DraftKings points, maybe even more if he gets hot from three. I mean, we talked earlier in the gambling segment about the injuries that Washington is dealing with. I mean, they're out like 5 or 6 of their most talented players, and I think they just have to lean on Beal so much to be competitive. And the Wolves, if Towns is out, they don't have a ton of other talent, but I think they can make things work more than the Wizards can if Wiggins has a bad game.
At the power forward position, Kristaps Porzingis, who has been awesome in the absence of Luka Doncic, he's going to cost you 8,300. Again, he's been tearing it up, 50-plus DK points in 4 of the Unicorns' last 5 games. Would you be interested in someone like him, or do you pivot to a LaMarcus Aldridge, who is $900 cheaper, Bertha?
I mean, ideally, I would save the money here, but I just think Dallas's size is going to present a significant problem for Aldridge. They have Powell, they have Porzingis himself, they have Boban if they need him. I mean, there's always a chance Porzingis cools down here, right? But I think he's been so great lately that Rick Carlisle and Doncic, they're going to do everything they can to feed him the ball. And like if Porzingis misses shots, he just misses shots. But I think he's been so good lately that they're going to do everything they can as an offense to keep getting him the ball in great situations.
Chirag, how do you feel about Porzingis versus the possibility of LaMarcus Aldridge?
I definitely agree with Alex here. Porzingis, while he's 8,300, he doesn't have to do much to exceed value. While LaMarcus Aldridge is cheaper, as you mentioned, the size is really going to be able to prevent him from going off. He had an amazing game in their previous game, so maybe he's hot already and he continues to roll along. But you know what? In a game like this, there's a ton of value. Marvin Bagley at power forward. There's some other forward eligible players as well that you can slot in. You don't need to save as much with LaMarcus Aldridge, and you can spend up for Kristaps Porzingis, and you can slot him in as a center as well.
All right, that's going to do it for you guys. Thanks so much. And pardon me, Berutha, apparently I called you Ben earlier, so I don't know what got into my mind there. But Berutha, thank you for your time. Chirag and Berutha will be back to discuss the showdown between the Jazz and the Trailblazers, available on DraftKings. We're going to go back to the NFL. We'll do so by sending it to Adam Kaufman, who chatted recently with Broncos receiver and kick return specialist Deonte Spencer.
Most of your highlights, though, so far have come as a returner. You had the 60-yarder against the Packers earlier this year. What's on your mind when you're hanging back there, balls in the air, you're waiting to run and catch it, obviously, and bracing yourself for contact? Because that's got to be, I don't know, if it were me, that seems like it's a pretty scary position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary back there sometimes, but, you got to be fearless just to have that job, man. It's not easy, and it's kind of one of those things where you can start the game off and you can make big plays throughout the game. So with that being said, I'm kind of one of those guys that's just fearless, just want to make plays for my team. And I just catch it and run fast as I can. And they say when you run fast and you full speed, good things that happen. So that's what I try to do.
You're like a cross between Ricky Bobby talking about going fast and just running nonstop like Forrest Gump. It's just all fast mentality, right?
Fast. That's it. That's all I'm thinking about is going fast.
Very few players, you may even know the exact number for all I know, but very few players out of McNeese State have actually reached the NFL. Even fewer have, I think, played games. I mean, it's what, a few dozen, if that? What's it mean to you to be in such an elite group?
Honored, man. It's crazy because, you know, looking back just throughout my college career, you know, I never thought that I would have the chance and the opportunity just to be playing in the NFL, and just knowing with the guys that came before me, and you know, wearing that helmet and wearing those colors, you know, I can finally say that, you know, I made it to the next level, and just to help, you know, somebody that has that same dream as me, in that position, you know, anything is possible. So.
You tweeted recently, imagine going places nobody thought was possible. Is that you right now? Are you just living it?
Yeah, I'm just living it, man. Living the dream, blessed, and just honored to be in this position. So it's crazy because I tweeted that, and then the Pro Bowl thing kind of came out, and it was just like, who would have thought? You know, I always say, why me? You know, so I'm just blessed, man.
You said before we were actually on camera doing this, ask me anything. Here's something I got to ask you about. On Twitter, you tweeted out, and you like to tweet out, you've done this more than once, Godspeed. Thing is, the S is a lightning bolt. Lots of people have thought you're writing Godpeed, which I think is pretty funny. Why stick with it, especially knowing what the reaction's been?
I looked at it in a totally different way. So the Godspeed, the lightning bolt, it was the S, but I kind of took it as, you know, God giving me this ability and this talent, giving me the speed, and, you know, I use it to my best ability. So the whole emoji thing with the lightning bolt, it kind of went south. But, you know, I think it's pretty cool, and I'm sticking with it.
When you're not thinking about football, talking about football, what's on your mind? What are you doing?
I'm usually home playing video games. That's probably that kind of get my mind off of football a little bit, and, you know, interact with some of my friends that I probably just don't get to talk to on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. They stay on the game, so sometimes I just like to join parties and just talk. Sometimes I don't even play the game.
Do people ever catch on to they just think you're some random guy, or do they catch on to the fact that you're an NFL player?
I recently just switched my gamer tag to Godspeed 11, so
maybe a little more obvious now.
I had D-Spence 4, so I felt like that was a little too obvious, so I had to switch it up. Yeah. Random people was joining the parties, and I had to get that situated.
I think it's coaching.
All right, welcome back. DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich is here. DFS dissection of Week 17, the Sunday main slate. It's a 15-gamer, not 16. Only game that's left off is the San Fran-Seattle Sunday night game, so lots of price checking to get to. Are the following players priced right on the Week 17 slate? So I say all that, and then, Jeff, I got to lead off with a question about a player that's not on the slate. It's Marshawn Lynch. He's not on the main slate. Seattle's playing Sunday night. He will be available to play for the Seahawks against the 49ers. Just want to get your general expectations for the return of Beast Mode.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting situation to watch, obviously. Marshawn Lynch coming in not having played football for a bit. At the same time, you know, Pete Carroll has said, you know, barring some unforeseen thing in practice, he's probably going to get some touches. I mean, they really only have Travis Homer in front of him, who knows the playbook and has been there for most of the year. So I do feel like Homer is going to be out there, especially in like passing situations, because he knows the blocking schemes, et cetera, et cetera. They can probably run a few more plays, call a few more audibles with Homer in the backfield. But, you know, Pete Carroll's the guy who likes to pound the rock and establish the run, things like that. So I think you're going to see Marshawn Lynch probably get like 10 to 12 carries, maybe even catch a screen pass or two. You know, I wouldn't, that's probably his ceiling. Like, I wouldn't be going in there saying that's a guarantee, but if things go right, if he gets off to a good start, reels off a few good runs off the bat, I think he could approach those kind of touch numbers. At the same time, this could go south quick too. Robert Turbin is in the mix too. If he starts off well, I mean, Lynch might only get 5 carries. If they get behind, Homer might play more. So it's a real volatile situation. I think Lynch is probably going to, you know, get in there for a healthy 8 or 9 carries, but it could go either way. I mean, this is just, it's something that for fantasy purposes, I wouldn't feel confident about. I'd much rather just watch the situation play out, and I really don't know if there's enough upside to play him in a showdown slate.
And if he's at the 1 yard line, they're going to throw it, right? So there's no way Marshawn
right.
Lynch would even matter. Robert Griffin III is going to get the start in Week 17 for the Ravens. That's been addressed all week. He'll lead that dynamic Baltimore offense against the Steelers. He does not have a safety valve coming out of the backfield in Mark Ingram. So with some offensive starters out, do you like RG3? He's only 5,100 in Week 17.
I mean, the price is kind of tempting. And look, RG3 can do at least some of the things that Lamar Jackson can do. He's not as dynamic a runner, obviously, but he's still got some speed. He was a little bit like Lamar Jackson before Lamar Jackson, just in terms of how explosive he was out of the backfield as a quarterback, right? But I don't really trust it enough for DFS. I just don't feel like the ceiling is there. I don't know if they're going to run as much. They'll probably do a bit more of a conservative approach. They still have good backfield options. I mean, I think Gus Edwards and Justice Hill both play in this game. I think that's good, but I think those guys on their own might be better options than RG3. And again, like, this is a Pittsburgh team who's pretty solid defensively too. They've allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks per game this year, so it's not like it's an upside spot. I'm expecting a close, low-scoring game, and that doesn't really translate to great for fantasy, even at 5,100. I'd much rather go down to Case Keenum at 4,500. If you're going to go for a cheap QB. That Dallas defense, even at home, has been gashed in spots. And Keenum still has some decent receivers to work with. So not really a huge RG3 fan this week.
If he looks good, Greg Roman is going to get a coaching job somewhere and get paid a good amount of money. That's just my 2 cents. Let's go to Saquon Barkley, who exploded in Week 16, 46.9 DK points. He put up 33.3 the week before against Miami. Now, he's at his highest price, Jeff, since Week 10. 8,700. Are you paying that for Barkley against Philadelphia?
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting spot this week for Barkley. Like you mentioned, the price increase. It's very warranted. I mean, what he's done over the last 2 games. I mean, he's averaging 27, 28 touches. He's caught 4 passes in each of the last 2 games, but he's also found the end zone 4 times. This is a player who obviously suffered a high ankle sprain early in the year. And it looks like he's only just recovered over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's something to keep in mind. It's a player who's obviously very motivated to end the season strongly. And the Giants, I know we didn't get to talk about them in the last segment, but I feel like they're very live in this game. They should have beaten Philadelphia a couple weeks ago with Eli Manning. They absolutely blew that game. But, with the healthy Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones back, I think this game is going to be very competitive. I know the Eagles have a good rush defense. I still feel like you're probably going to want to get a piece of Saquon Barkley this week, just with that increased usage, his increased explosiveness. I just feel like there's still a lot of upside here, even against a good rush defense, like the Eagles, who have basically, I think they're 6th or 7th. They've allowed the 6th or 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs this year per game. So it's not a good matchup on paper, but I think for 8,700, under 9K, the usage, the explosiveness that Barkley's shown, I still think he's definitely in the mix of guys you really got to target, like in all formats this week on DraftKings.
It's win and you're in for the Titans. They will be going all out in Week 17 on the road against the Texans. Derrick Henry was inactive last week. Tennessee could not get a lot done on the ground against New Orleans. Now, Tajay Sharp ended up leading the team in yards and targets. He also scored 2 touchdowns. Sharp is only 4,300 this week against Houston. But we've heard and gotten reports here that Henry has practiced in full this week. So how much value is lost here in Sharp? Are you still in on him?
Sharp is looking a little dicey for continuation. I think the biggest thing for Sharp is Corey Davis is questionable. He's in the concussion protocol, it looks like. If he didn't play, I would like Sharp a little bit more, even if Derrick Henry played. Houston kind of shut down Derrick Henry the last time they played, one of the few teams to do it over the last month or so, held him to under 100 yards. I believe they held him out of the end zone too. So that's a good thing. I mean, Houston's run defense has been pretty good in spots, and it could happen again. I mean, look, obviously Derrick Henry is not 100%. If he missed a game last week, that was essentially like a playoff game for Tennessee. He's hurting a little bit. So there's definitely all the possibility in the world here that the Titans have to rely on Ryan Tannehill's arm to get this done, which could mean good things for Tajay Sharp. Tajay Sharp isn't exactly what you call explosive, but he's definitely a good possession receiver. The Texans secondary is getting healthier. Like Bradley Roby's back to help a little bit. So it's not a bad value pick. Again, I would really watch. If Corey Davis plays, I would avoid this situation altogether. I think A.J. Brown is still fine because he's been clearly the dominant number one there over the last month. But if Corey Davis plays, I'd probably stay off Tajay Sharp. I like going up to Steve Sims Jr. at 4,700 instead in this price range. Terry McLaurin's banged up. Sims has really moved into that slot role, very consistent targeting. He's going to be in a good catch-up situation, too, with Case Keenum in that game where Washington is minus 10.5 point underdogs, so plus 10.5 underdogs. So I like Sims over Tajay Sharp. Tajay Sharp, maybe if you're making like a Ryan Tannehill stack, though, he could be in play.
Yeah, and you were right about Derrick Henry. Held out of the end zone, only 8.6 DK points, his third lowest total of the season in Week 15. That was against Houston, and of course they're battling again in Week 17. Everyone expected O.J. Howard to be a little more involved for the Bucs in Week 16 with no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. Howard saw 7 targets, only made 3 catches. Do you have your eye on the tight end Howard this week at just 4,300?
Not really. I mean, people just keep going back to O.J. Howard. This has got to be the week. We're one more week here, and then there's no more O.J. Howard weeks, thank God. I get it. I mean, the top 2 options are gone. He's still cheap. It's a pretty good matchup against Atlanta, although Atlanta's been pretty solid defensively the last few weeks. I just don't trust this. I mean, this hasn't happened all year in all different types of situations. Even last week, I mean, 7 targets, great, but like the conversion rate was terrible. Cameron Brate was the guy they went to in go-to dime. It wasn't even O.J. Howard, and Brate dropped the ball, so maybe that's a good thing for Howard. But no, I don't like this. I mean, I would actually rather go down to Jonnu Smith at 4,200, who's been far more explosive, has got a better connection with Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he doesn't see a ton of targets, but at least he's converting those targets into bigger plays. I think that might be the better ceiling play. I think even going down to Jack Doyle. And again, like Dallas Goddard at 4,900, Zach Ertz is banged up. I mean, Goddard could be in for a huge day. Even I like going all the way up to the player on the other side of this game at Austin Hooper, who had a pretty solid day last week, and he's back to full health. I mean, a very, very good matchup against Tampa Bay secondary. He could easily get in the end zone or go for 100 yards here. So I'm not really in on Howard. I haven't been on Howard since like week 3. I think people are just trying to make this happen when it's obviously not going to happen with Bruce Arians. I'd fade this one.
One more price check. Patriots defense, most expensive in Week 17, going up against the Dolphins. Do you need to pay up for them this week, the Patriots at 4,300, or do you see a cheaper defense in a good spot? I know when we talked gambling, you were a fan of the Patriots covering that 16-point spread.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you ever have to pay 4,300 for a defense because defense is so volatile. And you can get defenses obviously for like half this price. So when you can do that, and if you just get 10 points from like a $2,000 defense, even if the Patriots got 20 points, you'd still be in a pretty good spot. At the same time, this is a defense who early in the year was like near a must-play some weeks, going off for like 25 points. 37 points, and against weak teams like Miami. So I do like the spot for the Patriots. I think they're going to win this game big. Like I said in the last segment, if you're going to pay all the way up, just looking at the options like Buffalo, Kansas City, New Orleans, I would try to get to the Patriots for sure. They've been a defense who has shown they can take advantage of these types of matchups. Again, I don't feel like this is a must play. I think you got the Broncos at 3,300 who have a lot of upside this week too at home against a weaker Oakland team. So I think you could go there and get similar upside. And like I said, there are some cheap defenses with teams starting backup quarterbacks, resting players. Like the Cardinals are really interesting at 2,400. But again, if you have the salary left over, or you just want to create a few different type of lineups where you're paying up for defense, yeah, the Patriots would be my target here, especially in like the top 5. They've shown they can take advantage of these matchups all year. This is a very big game for them. Miami's kind of coming off like a big win of their own. It's kind of a letdown spot. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely in play this week for sure.
Jeff, thank you very much. Yeoman's work. We'll talk to you again soon. We're going to wrap it up with NBA Showdown thoughts. Blazers, Jazz. Now, don't miss this. Undefeated super featherweight world champion Gervonta Tank Davis take on former unified featherweight world champion Yuriorkis Gamboa for the World Boxing Association lightweight title. It's live Saturday, December 28th at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on Showtime. Here's a sneak peek.
It's boxing's holiday event of the year. Undefeated Tank Davis battles Yuri York's Gamboa in an explosive title fight.
Welcome to the bar. This fight is going to be powered by the letters K-O.
In 2019 with the banner. Ring out the year, Inside the Ring, on Showtime.
Well, how does that not fire you up? Let's talk some Showdown in the NBA. Our DK Live editor, Shirag Hira, is back, and Alex Barutha, not Ben Barutha, Alex Barutha of RotoWire. I still don't understand why I did that. Anyway, Showdown picks are needed. Portland Trailblazers at the Utah Jazz, one of 2 Showdowns available on DraftKings. Quick lineup notes for this one. Yusuf Nurkic is out for Portland. Mike Conley, as Shirag had mentioned earlier in the show, he remains out for Utah. So, Shirag, I'll give you the floor first. Who is your captain pick for tonight?
I'm rolling with Jingling Joe Ingles. You know, he really has a strong connection with Rudy Gobert. He is a facilitator as well. He gives you the three-point upside. He's coming off a really strong performance as well. And, you know, I really feel he's the right spot to go in the captain just because his salary at $10,800 in the captain spot allows you to pay up for a bunch of other guys, and you can slot in a couple values as well.
Barutha, your captain, please.
I do like that pick. I'm going to go CJ McCollum. I think for captain, I try to look at guys who, if things break right, can go for 55 DraftKings points. I think McCollum is a great option there. You can captain him for 11,400. And recently, even he's proven he can go for 50-plus fantasy points. So I think he's a great value when you're looking at captain.
Shirag, so if you're going to stack someone with Ingles, who might you consider?
Definitely has to be Rudy Gobert. That's a really simple one. They have that pick and roll connection, and also you get the double-double upside with the defensive stats. I think Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles is the correct Utah players to have tonight in the Showdown.
How about your stack with the captain, Barutha?
I'm going with Whiteside. I think if you're putting McCollum at captain, you're sort of banking on a game script that involves Lillard not really hitting value or struggling completely. And then if Lillard is not having a great game, basically the only way Portland can stay with the Jazz is if Whiteside has a huge performance along with McCollum.
All right, we need a fade. And give me one or two if you'd like. Absolute fades on this Showdown, Shirag.
I'm completely fading Donovan Mitchell tonight. He hasn't scored over 50 fantasy points since before Thanksgiving. With that salary, I think it's better. You have Bohan as well that can play well for them, and I'm just completely fading Donovan Mitchell. I don't see the upside here. He's one of the most expensive players on this slate, so Donovan Mitchell's out for me.
Yeah, third most on the slate tonight. How about you, Barutha? Who are you absolutely fading?
Yeah, I mean, the value on the slate when you get pretty far down is bad, and there aren't a ton of options, but even still, I would not play Kent Bazemore. You can basically get Royce O'Neal for the same price, who consistently plays 10 to 15 more minutes per game. There's always the chance that Bazemore goes off for like 30 DraftKings points, but it's so rare. They refuse to play him what seems like over 25 minutes. And I think there's another a better value option at virtually the same price.
All right, well, hold that thought. Let's go back to Shirag. Do you have any? Well, so Barutha doesn't think there's any value here on this slate. Do you agree or disagree? Do you find anybody attractive?
I did find Skal Labissière attractive here. You know, he provides you that hedge. If Whiteside gets into foul trouble against Rudy Gobert, he's going to play as well. He's already been trending over the last 3 games in the right direction. He has a chance to play 20 minutes. He can get those rebounds. He blocks shots. So I think at 3,600, that gives you the option to really slot in some of the higher priced guys. And, you know, with 20 minutes and a double-double upside with blocks here and hedging with the Whiteside there, it makes sense to go with Skal.
All right, so you liked O'Neal of Utah, Barutha. So who is another value play that you're into? Maybe you're not into anybody.
No, I mean, I don't know if he classifies as a value, but Shirag touched on Joe Ingles at 7,200, kind of in that mid-tier. Just like we already mentioned, taking on a ton of responsibility. He's a ball handler. He's a sneaky triple-double threat. He can hit a ton of threes. There's obviously huge upside here for Ingles.
All right, and last but not least, we need the slate-approved pick. This is for the entire 6-game slate. You got to keep some things in mind here. The Luka injury, the Cat injury. Shirag, you first. Your pick and why?
I'm looking at Bradley Beal. You know, when sliding him in as your most expensive player gives you the flexibility to choose a bunch of ways to go in. With the guys that are injured, Luka Doncic and Karl-Anthony Towns being questionable and being expensive, I think Bradley Beal, with his scoring upside, being the main guy there, and Detroit not being a strong defensive team, Bradley Beal's the play for me.
All right, Barutha, and your slate-approved pick.
I think De'Aaron Fox is way too cheap at 7,000 going up against a Wolves team that really, I mean, I think they've lost 11 straight. Just really isn't that good. We know he has upside for 40 or 50 DraftKings points. 7,000, I don't really expect him to see him at a price that cheap for the rest of the season. So I think you have to jump on here.
Barutha of RotoWire, Shirag at DraftKings. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. That is going to do it for us. We will see you tomorrow, Friday, December 27th, 10 a.m. Eastern for The Sweat. I am Brendan Glasheen. So long. Thanks for sticking with us.